I distinctly recall Ted Koppel telling Nelson Mandela that he better go along with the Jewish agenda or risk losing support in America. And that in itself was a very revealing statement from Ted Koppel. Because what Koppel was saying in effect was that we Jews, he was saying, have the power in this country to deny you aid unless you go along with our agenda. That is what Koppel was in fact saying. It was what he precisely articulated, but if you read between the lines, that is what he was saying. And Mandela, all praises due to him, had the courage, the strength to tell Ted Koppel on international TV, Mr. Koppel, he said, your enemies are not my enemies. By some strange coincidence, Jesse Jackson was sitting in the front seat as this exchange was going on between Ted Koppel and Mr. Mandela. And I remember sitting by my TV and looking intently at the face of Jesse Jackson and wondering what was going through his mind and if perhaps he was learning something he didn't know before, something about dignity and self-respect. Of course, Jesse himself is another example of this incredible Jewish onslaught against black folk for the last 20 years. In both of his presidential campaigns, Jesse Jackson was harassed by the Jewish community. In fact, the Jews became perhaps his largest single opponents during both of his campaigns. So my own case comes in that kind of a historical context. It doesn't come out of nowhere. It comes out of that context. Here I am using a book, a well-documented scholarly book, The Secret Relation Between Blacks and Jews, in my African American survey class. And somebody decides that black folk aren't supposed to use this book. For several months before I used the book, the organized Jewish leadership had been very assiduously and systematically attacking the book in the press. And all of us know how the Jewish establishment operates. By attacking the book, first they attack the book, they call it anti-Semitic. Then they got a few Negro stooges to get up and attack the book too. And what they were doing was serving notice on all the other black professors out there, you all better not use this book, is what they were saying. Well, of course, I haven't been studying the Honorable Marcus Garvey for the last 20-odd years to let Jew or Gentile tell me which book is appropriate for my class. And so, naturally, I paid no heed to their warning. One of the Jewish newspapers, I believe it was the New York Forward newspaper, published by the Jewish community, after my situation arose, they had an article in there in which they said that I was defiant, quote unquote defiant. They called me defiant. And that too is very, very illustrative of what's really going on here. That proves beyond any shadow of a doubt that what they had done, their strategy was to tell black folk preemptively, as we say in Trinidad, from in front, not to use that book. So by my using the book, I was defiant. Who the hell are these Jews to tell me that I am defiant? They're not my mother, they're not my father. Defiant hell. The very term is so redolent of arrogance. Defiant. In other words, I am not supposed to use the book unless I get their permission, and having used the book in spite of the lack of permission, I was therefore being defiant. Can you imagine that? I was being defiant. My situation, I believe, is a very fascinating situation as a historian on the one hand, and also the person in the middle of it on the other hand. It gives me a very unique perspective on this whole situation, because as a historian, I can stand back and look at the situation objectively, almost as though I'm not the one involved, as though somebody else over there. I can stand back and look at it through the perspective of a historian, and see it in context, historical context. Of course, as the person involved in it, I get a very intimate feel for the Jewish tactics in these kinds of areas. And so it seems to me that my situation has illuminated, for me at least, many of the basic principles upon which the Jewish onslaught has been practiced over the last couple of decades or more. First of all, there's their incredible arrogance. In my case, you had two students from the Hillel organization, which is the student arm of the ADL. Clearly, they had been primed by their superiors that this book was anti-Semitic, quote unquote. They came and sat in my class the first day of the semester, unknown to me. An incredibly arrogant thing. The students then did what the elders have always done. It's very interesting. When the Jewish establishment moves on you, they move straight to whoever they perceive to be your superiors. In this case, the Jewish students who had learned very well from the elders, they went straight to the president and the dean of the college. They never talked to me. They went straight to the president and the dean. The president sent them to the chairman of the department. The chairman sent them to me. That's when they came to me. Only when they couldn't deal at any other level did they come to me. The Jewish organization has waged a struggle against us over the last several decades, also because of its great influence in the media. And here again, my case illustrated this. You had four Jewish organizations getting together: the Anti-Defamation League, the American Jewish Committee, the American Jewish Congress, the Jewish Community Relations Council. Four Jewish organizations got together and issued a joint press release against me, poor little me, saying I was anti-Semitic and bigoted, etc. I have a copy of the actual press release, and it's the most amazing press release I've ever seen, and I've seen many press releases in my time. This press release is on a piece of paper this big. It has the logos of all four organizations across the top. It has the signatures of the various executives of each organization. The piece of paper is so big that I liken it to a medieval scroll. I'm sure in the movies you've seen those medieval scrolls where King Arthur and the rest of them, you know, one of the knights at the round table would come to King Arthur and he would roll out this big long proclamation. Well, this is the proclamation they issued against me. They actually went on record as saying that it's the first time that four of the organizations ever got together to issue a single press release against, a single individual. And the question, why is this overkill? And again, the reason has to be because they see a loss of power over black people. They vamped on Dr. Jeffries. As soon as they figured, well, Dr. Jeffries was, in the throes of struggle, somebody else cropped up at the side. They're getting to the point now where there are no more easy victories. In fact, where there are no victories at all. For the first time, they are at the point where we are beginning to win victories. And this makes them not only frantic and frenetic, but it almost makes them lose their mind. It pushes them into situations where they can't win.
They have no mind.
In both Dr. Jeffrey's situation and in my situation, they have gotten themselves into fights that they cannot win. They can't possibly win. And only a fool picks a fight that he can't win. And the only explanation for this is the great loss of power and that frantic desire to maintain what little power they have left. But they see it slipping away. History is moving against them, and they are beginning to act irrationally. And in that lack of rational action, of course, we have our opportunity. In my case, too, I saw the tendency, the ability, the historical ability of the Jewish leadership to resort to lies and distortions. The Boston Globe published 4 articles against me, including an editorial, in 6 days. And it was a great learning experience for my students, because here, luckily the class was still in session. So here we had students, I had a whole class full of students who had actually read this book, who knew what the issues were, and I was able to, bring these articles and show the students, and the students could see for themselves the lies and distortions. They were seeing things written in a paper, in an editorial, that was just totally devoid of any truth. One of the greatest distortions which has been